High interest debt is one of the toughest opponents you'll face. Unless you power up with a SoFi personal loan. A SoFi personal loan could repackage your bad debt into one low fixed rate monthly payment. It's even got super speed, since you could get the funds as soon as the same day you sign. Visit SoFi.com/power to learn more. That's SoFi.com/POWER. Loans originated by SoFi Bank N.A. Member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply. NMLS 696891.
You're listening to the Sisters-in-Laws podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women who replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women, according to the NIH and CDC. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee, and you will hear me interview sisters-in-laws who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Now let's get started.
Well, welcome, Diane, to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I would love to begin with you sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I am a high school teacher. I work with 9th and 10th grade. For the past couple of years, I've been special education math teacher. But recently, I've decided to try a new role, which is working with multilingual learners as the English language specialist at my school.
Nice. So, but you have a story to tell about your journey to motherhood. So I would love for you to just take us back on that journey and talk about your journey navigating through motherhood, through fertility, all of the things.
My goodness. Yes, definitely have a story to tell. And it's definitely been a journey to motherhood, because my journey to get here wasn't your typical, 9-month journey. And then boom, here's the baby. Definitely had some bumps in the road. I got married in 2013, and I told my husband that I just kind of wanted to enjoy being married and enjoy getting to know him as my husband for about 5 years. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, why 5? Can't we do like 1 or 2? And I said, okay. So we got married. I was 27. And so around 29, that's when I decided to like go off like birth control and all that. And it was taking a while. And my husband said, let's just get checked out, just make sure everything's okay. And I said, everything's probably fine, but okay. If you find the doctor and the insurance takes it, make the appointment, then I'll go. And that's exactly what he did. And in January 2015, I went to an infertility doctor just to get checked out. And it turns out that I have PCOS, which isn't necessarily something that causes infertility. It just makes it tougher to get pregnant because you ovulate a lot less. So a lot of times PCOS is lumped in with infertility. And so we worked with these people for about 7 months doing IUIs, and nothing happened. So then we changed jobs. Our insurance didn't cover infertility treatment for a couple months. And then I was a little sad about that. And that's when I created my Instagram account, just to find like-minded people going through something that I was going through, longed to be a mom, but nothing just seemed to happen. And then when we moved to DC, I ended up getting a job that had advanced infertility treatment coverage with health insurance. And so that's when we started to pick the ball back up and said, okay, let's talk to an infertility doctor again. And they did something called an HSG, I think. Yes. And that's when I found out that I had blocked tubes. So all this time we were doing IUIs, which probably would have been very effective had I not had blocked tubes. But with my previous doctor, because I know the question could be, oh, well, why didn't they try that, after like 3 or 4 failed attempts of an IUI? Why didn't they do that? We did do something in-house, which was a saline test where when they would shoot up saline up past my cervix and look for spillage out of my, fallopian tubes. And they claimed that they saw spillage, but for one of the fallopian tubes, they didn't see anything. So it was kind of like, well, all you need is one. So I don't know, maybe it was something else that they saw. Maybe it wasn't spillage and they just interpreted it as spillage. I don't know. But anyway, yes, I have blocked tubes. So that is when our journey of like IVF really started. The first round we did in February 2017, and I had like 24 eggs, which is a very good number. And it shouldn't be too surprising because I have PCOS, so therefore I have a high egg reserve. And so producing the eggs wasn't an issue. Of the 24 eggs, 12 of them were mature. So that's a good number still too. And when they took my husband's sample, they put my eggs with his sample and let them try to like procreate, I guess, the more conventional way. When that happened, we only had one low quality embryo, and I was devastated because you have like this high number and only to get not just one, but one low quality, right? So I was hopeful because everyone was like, oh, all you need is one. And I was like, yeah, all I need is one. So we took that one on day 3 and transferred it. And I did not get pregnant. So my husband decided to wait, right? Because my infertility doctor was like, all right, let's, start next month. Let's get the cycle on. And we're like, you know what? We're just gonna pause, gonna wait. And we ended up starting again in June 2017. Actually had the transfer. Well, let me back up. So round 2, we had to do a whole new cycle of everything, more eggs, another egg retrieval and all that. So this time we got 22 eggs. 9 of them were mature. And of the 9, we got 7 good day 5 embryos. I was excited, right? But my husband and I, we didn't plan on freezing the leftovers because we didn't have the money. I told my infertility doctor and she was like, oh, wait, I didn't know that you didn't plan on, freezing them. And I said, yeah, well, we don't have the money. I think it was like $1,800 to freeze them, whatever was left over. And she said, well, the most that I can do is 50% off. So in that little conversation, just letting her know, I don't think we have the money for it. The price from $1,800 to $900. And she was like, yeah, so you got to figure out how you're going to get that $900. That's the lowest I can go. And GoFundMe, and somehow, some way, in 4 days, we raised $1,000. And I told myself I would never do a GoFundMe. There's nothing wrong with GoFundMe. I guess it's my pride, right? I just don't like asking people for money, especially knowing, I have a job and I should be able to do it. And so, but anyway, yeah, we were able to raise the money. I was beyond surprised. So was my husband. So we transferred one, which was my son. I did get pregnant with that one transfer, and then the other 6. And so I found out that I was pregnant in August 2017, and everything was going good. I wasn't really experiencing a lot of the symptoms that people typically say they experience. I really wasn't tired. I didn't have morning sickness. My best pregnancy life. But then instead of saying that, I said, I don't even feel like I'm pregnant. That's just what I kept saying. Like, I feel good, I felt a little kick here and there. And so, yeah, but, I went to my 12-week appointment. Everything was fine. Went to 20-week appointment. Everything was fine. I even had to do at 22 weeks, we did a, fetocardiogram because, with IVF babies, they have a higher risk of a heart defect. So they went ahead and they did that with maternal fetal medicine, and everything was fine. And that was December 13th, 2017. A week later on December 20th at 5 a.m, I feel like the sharp pain that I just interpreted as a cramp, right? Like a period cramp. Too worried about it just because, cramps, typically nothing's wrong with cramps. Like it's normal. Right. And so I go on throughout the day and I'm feeling this pain again and again. Before I went to work, I thought maybe I had to go to the bathroom and I tried, nothing happened. So I went ahead and went to work and I'm still feeling it. They're intense. It might have crossed my mind, like, are these contractions? But at the same time, I was only 23 weeks. So I said, no, there's no way it could be. Like, it's too early. Like, I'm not even in the third trimester yet. So around 1:00, I see some blood. So I call my doctor and they're like, oh, come on in. And so my husband and I, we end up going up there. The pain is becoming more. The blood is more. So as soon as I get there, they see me and they listen to the heartbeat. Everything's fine. Sigh of relief. And then my doctor was like, but I really want to see why you're bleeding. So they did a vaginal exam. And as soon as they did that, she quickly took it out, called for the on-call labor and delivery nurse and doctor, had him pay. I'm like, what's going on? She said, your son's bag is bulging through your cervix. So his head wasn't there or anything, but the bag was. And so all this time I was feeling contractions. I was in labor. And so they rushed me down to labor and delivery. And I got down there around 4 something. And then at 6:17, I delivered a 23-weeker. He was 23 weeks and 5 days, weighed 1 pound, 13 ounces, and he was 13 inches long, and he could not cry. My husband saw him fresh out the womb with nothing attached to him, said he was the most beautiful thing that he had ever seen. And I didn't get the chance to see him without anything attached to him alive. Without anything attached to his face or anything like that while he was alive. So I ended up having him at one hospital that was a level 2 NICU, or they only had, or a level 3 NICU, but he needed a level 4. He ended up being transferred to NICU. So I was in labor and delivery recovering without my baby. But there's that I will never forget. And it's the neonatologist. She came to me, just before I was about to deliver him. And she said, because your son is not 24 weeks yet, you have the option whether or not you want us to resuscitate him. And I was like, why on earth would you even ask that? Of course I want you to resuscitate my child. And he said, yeah, she just had to, I guess, by law, just automatically do it unless they have parent consent if they're under 24 weeks. I didn't know that. But anyway, so yes, so they transferred him. I'm at the hospital. I'm getting calls from the other hospital, and they're telling me, you might want to come. Like, we don't know how long he's going to last. And so I got urged from the hospital about 10 in the morning, and I rushed to the other hospital. And as soon as I got there, he started doing better. Like, they said, oh, this is the best he's ever done. And each day he was getting better and better. But each day they also had that conversation with us. Like, if you to change care to comfort, no one is going to judge you, you and your husband. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Don't feel like, a parent for making that choice. And we were like, why are you keep having this conversation with us? So we said, as long as he responds to the interventions that we provide, we're going to keep going. The moment that he starts to reject it, or, we find ourselves having to continuously try to fix something that we've fixed, or then, then we'll revisit this. And so he was doing well up until Christmas Day. Christmas Day 2017 was probably the worst day he had. But, we continued, so on and so forth. Like, he had multiple blood transfusions. He had bilateral grade 4 brain bleeds. He was having seizures this time. It was a lot going on with him. Oh, this little tiny baby, so much. But I remember saying, I just want to see his eyes open. I just want to see his eyes open. Because when he was born, his eyes were still shut and they hadn't opened. And I remember They called us and said, hey, he had a rough night. This was on the 28th. The morning of the 28th, they said he had a rough night. He started throwing up the meconium, like he never passed it. He never had a poop. So now he started to throw it up. And we remember talking to the doctor saying, well, like, okay, well, when he loses blood or his body doesn't have an adequate amount of blood, like what happens? What's the first thing to start to go? And they said a lot of times the way the body will do it is the bowels will go first. And that's exactly what was happening, which is why I didn't pass through, which he started to throw it up. And then earlier in his time in the hospital, he was collecting a lot of air on his lung, his right lung. So we put a pin in his chest to like let air escape. And so this has been in there for a couple of days. And now even with it there, air started to reaccumulate. And then by this time, he still had his umbilical line, but that's only good for like 5 to 7 days before infection. And this is day 8. And so they're like, so now we have to do a PICC line. And the doctor told us, like, I don't know if he would be able to tolerate it just because he's so sick. And I think that's one reason why they let it stay in a little longer, to see if he could get a little stronger so they could do the procedure and not feel like, it would be extremely traumatic for him. But the doctor was saying, like, if you want the PICC line in, we have to do it today. If not, like if you want to keep going, like keep providing care, for him to get better, we have to do it today. But one thing that I didn't want them to go through the procedure and he not even make it through the procedure. And I never got the chance to hold him alive. So my husband and I, we made the tough decision of switching care to comfort. And we didn't do the PICC line instead. And he was on like this nitric oxide. So we couldn't hold him at all while he was on that kind of ventilator. So they changed him to a regular ventilator and we were able to hold him for a couple of hours before he passed away. He passed away a little after midnight on December 29th, 2017. And it was rough. It was very, very, very rough during that time. My husband and I, we would say, why us? Like, we already had trouble having him. It ended up being it was like 3.5 years after marriage, maybe closer to 4, but 4, yeah, 4. It was 4. And but still didn't have a child live home with us. So I mean, it was really, really difficult. Sometimes, I think about him a lot. Sometimes it might bring a tear to my eye. Sometimes, I just smile. But in all honesty, when I sit back and think about it, I would say that he really did save my life, because I was not as healthy as I should have been or could have been during that time. And I just had this, and he also humbled me, because I had this mentality, all I need is to just get pregnant. Because I would think, because the job I was at, they had infertility coverage or like, IVF health coverage. And so I said, and I didn't like the job that much. And so I said, all I need to do is get pregnant and then I can leave, right? Like, because I only need the IVF procedure to happen and then I can go have my baby. And there I am. Obviously not. That's not the way that it happened. So I realized there were some ways that I probably could have handled the situation better, and probably should have like not looked at it as like such a calculated thing. Trying to plan when I would get pregnant, so that way the baby will be born at this time, so that way I have this much maternity leave, which bleeds over into summer, which means I get more time. Like, I was missing the whole thing of what it to like get pregnant, be a mom. And I took all that for granted. And of course I couldn't see all of that, while all of this was happening. But as I had a chance to sit and reflect, there are definitely some things that I could have done better. And trying to get pregnant, my view on being pregnant, and trying to calculate it so much.
Sitting in with all the details of your story, my goodness, and going through that. So how was the next month after that? Like, how did you start to begin the grieving process?
Um, Found I was able to pump. I was pumping, and I continued to pump even after he passed away because my sister had a daughter who was 4 months, and my sister was unable to produce adequate amounts of breast milk to give her baby. So I gave my breast milk to her, and it was good, and just knowing that I could give breast milk to her, to her daughter. I was able to produce something up until the day that we buried him. We the grave site. Lots of people came. His entire NICU team came. So just about everybody that cared for him in those 9 days showed up at the hospital. And I was shocked to see like his nurses and the 2 attending doctors that were there while he was. And but so being yeah so seeing all the faces definitely helped. Being able to provide my sister some breast milk for her young little one at the time. But after I buried him, my body just was like, okay, that's enough, and it kind of stopped producing on its own. I think I pumped like 5 times one day and only got an ounce. So then I was like, okay, I think my body's telling me it's. But after that, I think sharing my story, just on Instagram and just with people that may have asked questions, I found a lot of healing through talking about it. I know that's not everybody's story, and that's not how everybody finds healing, but it's how I was. And then in February, my husband and I started something called the Alayo Challenge. His name was Alayo. I didn't even say that part, but yeah, we named him Alayo Bryce Olusado. And so Alayo means one, joy and laughter. So even now, even though he would have been turning 4 this year. So even like when we think about him, we still smile, and we talk about the things that we remember about him. And so in healing, it's an ongoing process. I don't think you ever get used to it. You just like learn how to live with it. So I guess you could say I haven't done official counseling, but when I had my daughter and she was in the NICU, they did have somebody to talk to just about the whole NICU experience and whatnot. And so I used that to my advantage to like kind of talk through grieving his loss, my son, while also grieving my pregnancy for the second time. And in the beginning of my daughter's NICU stay, it was like grieving her too, because I didn't know how to come out of the NICU with a baby. So it was kind of like I was just preparing myself to lose too. But everyone was like, just like every pregnancy is different, every NICU journey is different. So your son's NICU journey is very different from your daughter's NICU journey. And you don't want to rob your daughter of celebrating her what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to rob of celebrating her milestones because you're grieving or comparing her to your son's experience. So most of the healing and how I coped with the grieving was just being open and honest, no matter how difficult it was, because I know that people don't really know what we experience. They don't know a lot of our community, about about the trauma or anything like that, because a lot of us don't talk about it. And so, that's why I'm thankful for platforms such as yours, Sisters in Loss, because it gives a place for us to talk about it. And also for people who may not have experienced it, but to, just to get an idea of like, oh, okay, because I don't want people walking on eggshells around me. Like my sister-in-law, she's like, yeah, I just never knew how to talk to you about it. But I've always had questions. And me personally, I'm okay with questions, because it helps me. It just helps me get through it. Sometimes I might notice something I didn't notice before. So just being open and honest. I know that was a long answer to your question, but
Oh no,
it's
that's really
yeah.
good. I would love for you to talk more about just your journey towards your daughter and the differences, because you mentioned about how, as you were navigating through her NICU journey and how, grief still came, So share with us more about that journey.
Okay. So previously in my story, I mentioned 6 embryos being frozen. So my daughter came from those 6. So she was one of the frozen embryos, and we did a frozen embryo transfer. And I got pregnant again. I had to wait though because of my preterm birth. So 18 months later, on the day, so June 20th, 2019, we transferred her. And it went well. I got pregnant. We were excited, but it was different because it was like, well, with my son, it was like my first positive pregnancy test. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. And then with her, it was like, well, I guess we're pregnant. And, so we already robbed her of that experience of like being really showing how excited we were for her, for her to be in my womb. Right. So that was the first thing. But so now I'm getting monitored every 2 weeks. 1 week would be with my OB, the next 2 weeks in maternal fetal medicine, then back with my OB, then maternal fetal medicine. And it just kind of went back like that. So I got lots and lots of pictures of her, got to see her. They checked my cervix. Whenever I would go to maternal fetal medicine, we would do cervical lengths just to make sure that, there was no shortening of the cervix, to see if I did need an incompetent cervix. Well, to see if I did need a cerclage, because there was speculation that I had a incompetent cervix, but I was in full-blown labor. And I was saying, I don't know if I need the cerclage just because I was in labor. A cerclage isn't going to stop contractions, and it won't stop my cervix from, like, if it's contractions and it's opening because of contractions. I said, what would happen? They said, well, your cervix can rip. So I said, absolutely not. So it's really important to like advocate for yourself too and ask questions. And it's like, because if I wouldn't have said anything, they probably would have put the cerclage in and everything would have looked fine. And I, later on at 26 weeks, I did go into labor and I would have had a ripped cervix. So it's good that I did speak up and I said, I don't think I need that right now. If we see something otherwise, then okay. But other than that, no. But right. So I was seen every 2 weeks up until 24 weeks. And then that's when maternal fetal medicine said, you're good. We will see you at 28 weeks. And I said, okay. And I'll see you. And everyone was happy because I had passed this milestone. I made it to 24 weeks. Last time I didn't. And so this was good. And now I felt like I could celebrate and like start thinking of the baby shower and doing things like that. And then we left for Thanksgiving, went to visit a friend down in Virginia, Hampton. And then I remember waking up when I was 26 weeks on that Saturday. It was December 1st, actually. And I said, we're 26 weeks. I looked at my husband. I was like, we're 26 weeks. Like, this is exciting. He was like, yeah, I know. My sister ends up getting proposed to that night and we all celebrate. And then the next morning around 11 o'clock, I think it's Braxton Hicks. Because I asked, well, what is Braxton Hicks? They said, well, it feels like a contraction, but there's no pain. And I said, okay. And so that's exactly what I feel. I had no pain whatsoever. It just feels like I'm hungry. Right. But, when you feel your stomach rumbling, that's what it felt like. And I said, oh, okay. This must be Braxton Hicks. I'm excited because I missed a whole trimester and a half and I'm ready to take on anything pregnancy had to offer me. So I was excited. And I feel it again. I'm sitting service, still feeling it. And I'm like, okay, Braxton Hicks. Yep, that's what it is, Braxton Hicks. And then like, I wasn't tracking it because there's no way it could be contractions. I would know what a contraction feels like, right? I told myself I would not go to the hospital because I know what it feels like. So it can't be that. So around 5 o'clock, I would say, PM, I felt something that felt familiar, right? Not a good familiar. And so I told my mom and my sister, I was like, be prepared to like get a call from me tonight saying I'm in the hospital. I'm gonna go home because it's probably just Braxton Hicks. And my mom said, let's just go to the doctor and let them tell you that's what it is so you can have some peace of mind. And that was like the best thing to be said to me, because otherwise I would not have gone to the hospital. I didn't want to go to the hospital. I thought I was going to have to sit in the emergency room forever. But I didn't realize, when you're pregnant, it's a little different. So anyway, I went and I go and they check my cervix and I'm 4 centimeters dilated. And everything just dropped. Go in tears. And they're like, yeah, you're not leaving tonight. And but they said, you could stay at 4 centimeters for a long time, or you can deliver the baby within hours. Like, we don't know. I asked if there was something they can give me to stop the contractions, and they said they really try not to use it. And so, but I was too far along anyway, being 4 centimeters. So yeah, it was just a really dark time. And I wasn't even able to enjoy her delivery. I didn't want to push, because I knew that the moment she left my body that I couldn't physically do anything for her. Like, everything would all be her. And she was so small, she wasn't ready. And mind you, I didn't even know her gender at this point. It was going to be revealed to us at our baby shower or later on. So we didn't know until she came out. And but we had a name for her. We named her Iyanu Grace Olusado, and she was 2 pounds exactly, and she was 14 inches. So yeah, but just knowing that she was going to the NICU was very traumatizing. And when I went to go see her for the first time in her isolette, she was in the same row that her brother was in. He was not the bay next to us, but the one next to that one. And it just brought back so many memories. The sounds, the smell, all that stuff. Like, it's just all came back. The same doctors, the same nurses, they were all there, but they were all coming by to reassure us, like, this is a different baby. A lot can happen in 3 weeks. It's a big difference in a 23-weeker and a 26-weeker. She looks good. Just all these things that I could not see because I knew I was in the NICU, and that's all I saw. I was in the NICU. I know that I lost my son in the NICU, so I'm going to lose her in the NICU. And it was just very, very different. And so that was a whole nother grieving process right there. Like I said, in the beginning, I felt like I was robbed of my pregnancy twice in a row. I was mad. I was angry. Couldn't be like that because I had to be there for my daughter, and I had to be there to support her. She had to feel my presence, because babies, they can just feel, right? Especially mom. Like, they feel your presence. They feel what you're feeling. And so I just knew that I just had to be there. I had to let her know I was there. I would talk to her all the time. And I was her number one advocate, there for rounds. I was a part of the nursing team. That's how I would do it. I would go there 8 a.m, leave at 7 in the evening, because my husband would come later on and we would leave together. So, but we pulled through 108 days. She was in the NICU, and then when she came home, and she's thriving, she's doing well. And half the time people wouldn't even know like her story unless we shared it. We were fortunate, not to have we didn't come home on oxygen. We didn't come home with a G tube. So she was able to come home like most of the, a lot of the full term babies that would come hours and then be able to leave, get discharged. Yeah. She looks like one of those babies, right? She looks like she never was even in the NICU. So we're blessed. I'm thankful for that, because I know it could have could have happened another way. But you know what? And even if it did happen another way, like I know I would have been prepared for it. And I just would have been, I still would have been her mama. So, but yes. And so she's talking.
That's good. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I know the NICU journey is a journey in of itself. So I'm that you shared about just the highs and lows and the grieving process of that. Because I know for a lot of our listeners who've had babies in the NICU, whether it's 1 day or 100 and something days, it's still traumatic. And for
Yes.
you to have to go back to that same exact place and relive those feelings from your son, it's a different kind of trauma that people may not understand, or it's very hard to articulate and describe how traumatic it is, especially with the new baby. So I'm so happy that you shared that, and I'm so happy that she's doing extremely well. So thank you for sharing that. So for our listeners who are on a journey, who've gone through, fertility challenges, may have some babies frozen because COVID has put a lot of stops on, at least the beginning of COVID, put a lot of stops on people going forward with fertility treatments. Now things are a little bit normalized and people are able to go back and get, get the IUI or the IVF treatment to get in 2020. What encouraging words can you leave with our listeners as they navigate through this pandemic, but also through the fertility challenges that they may be facing?
Wow. I would definitely tell people it's different. Comparing your journey to someone else's would keep you from enjoying your process. And I know that sounds weird, right? Because the infertility journey, the infant loss journey, the NICU journey, all of these journeys, none of them are fun to experience while we're going through it. But one thing I have learned is that after I've had the chance to sit and reflect on each of the journeys, I've learned a lot about myself and I've seen how I've grown. And I also know that when I was comparing, that's when I became bitter. Especially after the loss of my son, it was for me to go to baby showers. It was very hard for me to congratulate people that were pregnant. It was very hard for me to congratulate people making it to the 3rd trimester. And these are people that I know personally, people that I love, family, friends. So it was really hard. But once I was able to deal with those emotions that I had and was able to celebrate the people around me, I started to feel better because I also knew that when I did have my opportunity, I want my friends and my family and the people around me to celebrate me. And so I learned that it was very selfish of me, not negate how I felt, because the way I felt was very real, but just knowing how to put it in its place, how to navigate it, to where it didn't make me become this person that I wasn't. Because I'm not a bitter person. I don't hold grudges. I have a lot of love and compassion to share with my friends and family, and I'm always smiling. But comparing, do not compare. First thing, not even, because like I said, when I was comparing Alayo's process and Iyanu's process, or both of their NICU journeys to each other, I wasn't able to celebrate the small wins that Iyanu was celebrating. Prime example, when she came out, she cried. We heard her cry, but I didn't celebrate that because I was so in my head, no, not the NICU again. And everyone was telling me that she was doing much better. She looked good. Things were okay, because I knew that when I was here last time, it wasn't okay. So I didn't care what people told me. I knew what my last experience was. And so that's all I was going off of. And because I was comparing, I lost a lot of the small pieces of the beginning of her journey. And she started on CPAP. They didn't automatically intubate her when she was in her isolation. She was on CPAP for a while. And they saw that around day 9, she started to look like she was, I need some help. I'm losing a lot of energy. I'm burning a lot of calories just breathing. So come on, y'all, help me out. Something else that I really didn't celebrate like I should have was that I was able to hold her I actually held her on my birthday, December 10th. So that was day 8 for her. So I held her on day 8, something like that. Yeah. I mean, it kind of like all blurs together now, but so comparing robs you of a lot. It robs you of celebrating milestones. It robs you of, experiencing your journey yourself. And it can create some emotions within you that might not really be a part of who you really are, that it's like, whoa, where'd this come from? I don't typically feel like this. And, so I would just say comparing. And I know it's hard because we're all on Instagram, we're all in social media, and everyone's always posting everything, right? They're either posting their journey, they're posting their bumpies, they're posting their pregnancy announcements. And, here you are still waiting for your opportunity. But trusting the process is really important. And just understanding that everyone's journey looks different.
Absolutely. So where can we connect with you after this episode?
Well, the only thing I have going on really is Instagram. That's where it all started. And so I still follow a lot of the same people. A lot of us still have, babies now, but there are some of us who are trying. And so I'm there to support them and anyone else on my personal page, which is at me TTC in weight loss journey. It's long, but it's at ME_TTC_N_W8 LOSS, because it was supposed to be like me getting pregnant and losing weight. And I just feel like I've had that name for so long. I feel like if I change it, no one will be able to find me. So that's one reason why it's still there. But, I also want to celebrate my daughter. But doing that on my personal page is sensitive. And I think everything has its place. So I might sprinkle pictures of her here and there on that page, but she has her own page at Iyanu.grace. Iyanu is spelled IYANU.grace. And so that's all her baby pictures are there. And some people do follow me there. People say, oh, we want to celebrate with you. And I get that. And if you want to celebrate with me, you can follow her there. But here on my personal page, and knowing why I started it and the kind of community that I've built there, I want to be very sensitive to those people who are still trying. And my husband and I, hopefully we'll be able to try soon with one of the 5 frozen embryos that we have. So we'll be back on that journey with taking pictures of shots and all that.
Perfect. I absolutely love it. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for being on the podcast and sharing your story. It's been such a blessing to me, and I know that our listeners will definitely take something from your journey.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And anytime.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com. To stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter, please go to sistersinloss.com/newsletter. That is sistersinloss.com/newsletter. Please rate and review this episode, and I will talk to you next week.
What's better than pad thai and pepperoni pizza delivered at once? Pad thai and pepperoni pizza delivered for free. It's possible with the Wonder app. Mix and match as many restaurants as you'd like, from Greek to barbecue, all brought to you with $0 delivery fees. Order online or visit a dine-in location near you to explore our endless cuisine options. Get 50% off your first meal with code FREEDELIVERY NYC. That's code FREEDELIVERY NYC for 50% off your first order, only on the Wonder app or wonder.com. Terms apply. See wonder.com/new customer for more.